Hey guys, so today we're going to make some flavored bread rolls, or bread scrolls, should I say. We're just going to do our main dough to start with, and then we'll rest that out, and a bit later on we'll come in, we add all our fillings, and we should end up with some really nice rolls. Cool. So to start with, I've got 3 cups of strong bread flour. I've got some yeast, melted butter, got some egg replacer there, or if you want, you can just use one whole egg and one egg yolk. I've got a quarter of a cup of Castor Sugar, a bit of salt, it's about 2 teaspoons, and I've got 3/4 of a cup of warm milk. So to start with, we'll just get our yeast going nicely. So I've got my nice warm milk there, I'll just add it to my bowl. And then I've got my yeast, I'll just sprinkle that over top. And we'll just be able to leave that to kind of come to life, and it'll warm up from the yeast. The yeast will warm up from the milk and come to life, and we'll see hopefully some really nice bubbles coming out. After that, we'll add the rest of our ingredients and put it into the mixer. Okay, so we've had our yeast in here for about 5 minutes now. You can see it's dissolved mostly into the milk. We don't need too much more than that, but we'll just throw that into our mixer, and we're just going to add all of our different ingredients, give it a bit of a mix, and then hopefully we should have quite a nice little dough. So to start with, I've got my egg replacer. Just throw that in. I've got my sugar. Now you always want to add your sugar in reasonably early to yeast, because yeast like to eat it. So it'll help them develop really nicely. We've got a little bit of salt. We're just going to sprinkle that in there, and then we're going to get it pretty much right on to mix. Now, we do want to mix reasonably quickly after we've added the salt in, just because we don't want to leave our salt touching the yeast for too long. We want to get it dissolved in so it doesn't cook the yeast. Now, all we're going to do, got a quarter of a cup of melted butter, so I'm just going to pour that in. Now I'm going to do, got my 3 cups of flour, so I'm just going to put all of that in. Low setting just to start with while our bread dough is coming together. It's just because if we do put it on too high, we end up with flour everywhere. Don't want that. So as it kind of starts to combine like that a bit, you can just slowly start to kind of speed up.
A few moments later.
We just want to scrape down the sides and make sure we're getting the full mixture. Now what I'm just going to do is add just a tad more milk, just to give a bit of extra liquid to my dough, just so it'll help it just combine together and come together really well. So I'm going to add the equivalent of probably about a tablespoon to start with. And I'm just going to be really careful, give it a nice low speed, and just let it soak up that liquid. Okay, so now that we've formed a reasonably good ball, I'm just going to test it out just to see how that gluten's developed. I can actually feel it already in my hands that it's not quite ready. But we'll just see, it's going to form into a bit of a ball. And you'll just see on the top there, it's just ripping. There's no smoothness to it, it just tears. So that's how we know, for a really quick, easy check, that our dough is not ready yet. We need to keep on kneading it, just to that gluten develop. Okay, so do that for a decent amount longer now. Already that dough feels a lot softer. It'll just kind of start to form into a bit of a ball. See, there's still a few tears, but we're just going to find a nice flat surface and see if we can stretch it enough. Okay, still a few more tears in there, so what I'm going to do, add in for just a bit longer and see how we go. Okay, see how our dough looks right here. A lot softer again, so I'm thinking we should be in pretty good stead now. Yeah, you can see there we're getting a lot of a far smoother ball. See there we're getting minimal tearing. Just a few small ones there, but all in all quite a soft dough. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to form this into a bit of a ball. Just going to put it back into my bowl, take my bowl out. And all I'm going to do is just add a tad splash of oil in there. Take my dough. I'm just going to use it just to cover that top part a bit. Then I'm just going to spread it around with my hands. And that's just to make sure that when the dough does rise in here, it's able to really freely climb up and just rise to the best extent. Like that, I'll just throw it in there like that. And then we're just going to throw a tea towel over it. And we're going to leave it in a nice warm space for about an hour and a half. And hopefully it should double in size really nicely. We'll be back later and we'll see how it went.
Later that same evening.
Okay team, so we've got our dough here for our scrolls. So you may notice that this dough looks a little bit larger than the dough we had before, and that's because this dough is actually from a double batch from what we'd made earlier. You see it's risen really amazingly. A little bit of a skin there, but that's okay. You can just quite easily fold that in. So just knock all the air out of that now. We'll bring it back to a bit of a ball. As I said, this is double the amount. It's a double mix from the one that you'll be doing. So if it looks like I've got a hell of a lot more dough, it's okay. Cool. So a bit of flour just to dust it with. I'm going to roll it out a little bit just so I can get a bit of a measurement so I can split it into two. Cool. So now with a bit of a reading I can kind of gauge how much half will be. So I'm just going to kind of roughly split it. I'll put it over there for later, and this one we can just work with. Now see something like this little white part here. You can pull that out. All that is actually just a part of the skin from when it was rising. It's basically just a little bit of dry dough. If you leave it in there, it's absolutely no worries at all. It is just, as I said, dough. But you can just pull them out if you do see any big ones. Fix that tear there. You can just kind of fold it over itself and then pat it down a bit and you should get rid of it. Just make sure our dough is nice and even the whole way along. You don't want one side really thick and one side really thin. Cool, there we go. So we kind of formed our shape now. That's pretty much what we want. Reasonably easy to move around, which is good. It'll help when we're rolling it. Now we're going to do, I've got a bit of butter here. So I melted this butter and then I've let it at room temperature till it just solidifies a bit. You don't want it completely melted because when you cut your scrolls, all the butter is going to melt out and you'll not end up with any in the middle. but obviously you don't want it really fridge hard, so just nice and sincere like that. What it does, it lets us almost just paint it like an actual paint. Get a nice kind of a layer there. And then what I use is just a mixture of brown sugar and cinnamon. So it's probably about 1 part cinnamon, 2 parts brown sugar. And then depending on how hard my brown sugar is, I do sometimes put a little bit of Castor Sugar in there. You'll see there's a little bit of white flecks, and that's just to kind of help it make it a bit thinner, a bit sandier, and it just lets me sprinkle it really easily. Obviously, of course, that cinnamon is really just to your own taste buds. If you like some really nice strong cinnamon, then you can add more or a little bit less. Or you could take out the brown sugar if you don't like that kind of dark caramelizing taste. You might think that looks quite thick, but it's definitely worthwhile. The next part, and this is quite an important part that people usually don't do, you want to kind of push it down and kind of massage it into the dough. You know, it's not just a sprinkle on top and then roll it up. You really want to get that flavour right in that top surface of the dough, just so that it cooks in really, really nicely. So I usually just go around and press it down with my hands, just any of these big dry bits there, like that. You can kind of just spread them around a bit, and you'll see you get that nice darkness from where your sugar mix is mixing in with your butter. These lumps like that, just crush them up. And there we go. So I'm just going to give my hands a quick wash, just because I don't want to get too much sugar on the outside of my scrolls. Anything on the outside will burn and caramelize. And you don't really want that on bread. At least you do. Now that I've got that, that's kind of 2 corners there. My first fold, let's kind of flip it over a bit. And because I don't have any big fillings in here, you can kind of roll it really, really tightly without too much worry about anything, you know, falling out or anything like that. So I usually start from the middle, and you'll see I kind of, as I scroll, I'll pull it back, just stretching it. And you'll be able to feel the extent that the dough is happy to stretch to, and you just don't want to go past that point. Now, you do usually end up with your ends like that. What you can do is just come in and lop them off. Then you can actually, depending on how you want to do it, I can actually sometimes, you can re-roll it. Those little end parts. You just kind of stretch them out and just make them into a really nice kind of little scroll. by themselves, almost like a croissant. Except for obviously this is some pastry. But good little way to use the ends. Now for the rest of it, just want to use a really nice sharp bread knife and just start sectioning it up. So I usually go for about that size, for about 1 inch. And just letting the knife do all the work. Really nice sharp serrated blade is definitely what you want for this. If you find you have to push down or anything like that, your knife's not sharp enough, and it's going to ruin the scrolls because you'll just be flattening all of those sides there. You want a really nice spiral, you don't want anything squished like that. Once we've done that, I'm just going to put them into my 2 trays. And starting with the centerpiece and just forming them around that. I always try to make sure that these little lips there are always facing in towards the center one, and it just means that when they rise and then when they cook, they don't unravel. Once you've got them all spread out, you can just adjust them a bit just to make sure they're nicely evenly spread. So you end up with 2 kind of like that. So I'm going to let these rise for about 15 minutes, and they should be able to rise and just almost be touching each other, and then they'll finish the rising and cooking in the oven. We'll put them in for probably about 15-20 minutes at 190 degrees. So we'll be back soon and we'll see how they're. Okay, so I've given these about 15 minutes to rise now. So they've risen a little bit. They're not quite touching, but we'll just throw them in the oven. They'll rise a little bit extra, and they should be absolutely beautiful. Okay guys, so we've taken our scrolls out of here now. We'll just take that out. Pop that. Should see they're quite nice and soft.